first year only we discussed that morphology of the angiospermic plants, anatomy and taxonomy of angiospermic plant. So whereas in second year we are going to discuss, we are going to learn about physiology of the plant, microbiology, genetics, molecular biology, biotechnology, plants, microbes, human welfare. These are the units which are included in our second year syllabus. Today our topic is transport in plants. So in physiology, the first topic, transport in plants. 6 chapters are included in physiology, that is transport in plants, mineral nutrition, enzymes, photosynthesis in higher plants, respiration, develop and growth and develop, that is the 6th chapter. Today we are going to start, I will explain you the transport in plants. So transport in plants. So what is transport in the plants? So you know that the plants absorb water, minerals and synthesize the food material. How the transport takes place in the plant. There is some process. So that process we are going to discuss today. So you have ever wondered how the water move top of the trees, tip of the tree, and also the matter which transport move within the cell, across the cells, within the tissue. So whether the substances are moved in same direction or whether in different directions. All these substances are moved in same direction, whether in different directions. So what type of substances have to move? So for example, the rooted plants which absorb the water, the water needed to be transport for long distance, the growing tip of the stem, and also to various parts of the plant. So the plants, the photosynthetic parts or the photosynthesis or the food material which is synthesized in the leaves, which is synthesized in the leaves, are to be transport in various parts of the plant, and also the tip of the root which is embedded in the deeper soil. So the food material which is synthesized in the leaves are to be transport within the plant, all the parts of the plant, and the tip of the root which is embedded in the deeper layer. Not only food material and water, the other chemicals like plant hormones, vitamins also, and chemical stimuli also transport within the plant to various parts of the plant, So before going to discuss about the transport system, we have to recall the anatomy of the cell structure, and structure of the cell and anatomy of the plant is more essential. So we are going to revisit to understand the transport, the diffusion, as well as the potential, water potential and ion potential. So here an important thing is what type of transport processes takes place in the plant. And also what type of substances are transported at the site. So for example, in flowering plants, so the water, minerals, photosynthesis, hormones and chemical stimuli are to transport. So the In flowering plants, water, mineral, photosynthesis, that is food material, hormones, vitamins, chemical stimuli ought to be transported in the plant. Ought to be transported in the plant. So here the transport of the movement of the substance, over short distance is by diffusion. The movement of the substance over short distance takes place by diffusion and cytoplasmic streaming which facilitate the movement of the substance from one part of the cell to other, and between the cells, across the cells, and within the cells in the tissue. So over long distance, the transport of this substance over long distance through the xylem and phloem takes place. That is called translocation. So the movement of the substance over short distance means within the cell from one end to another end, or between the cells, So between the cells within the tissue, which takes place by diffusion. So which takes place by cytoplasmic stream. The cytoplasm which is rotate around the vacuole. So that cytoplasmic stream also help for short distance transport. That takes place by diffusion. Whereas for long distance transport through the vascular tissues, that is xylem and phloem. Takes place. That is a translocation which takes place in tall plants. So this is the introductory part. So another important aspect is the direction of the transport in the plant. So in rooted plants, the water transport in unidirectionally. Water transport unidirection. So the water which is transport unidirection, one direction, unidirection. That is from root to shoot. Whereas the photosynthesis or food material which is synthesized in the leaves are transport multidirectionally. That is multidirection to various spots. That is, so the food material which is transport for all parts of the plant, and even including the root tip which is embedded in the deeper layers. So the food material which is translocate multidirectionally means from source to sink. So storage parts is the sink. So in unfavorable condition, the food materials retranslocate from storage to growing tips. Thus, the food material which is translocate multidirectionally, water translocate or transfer or move unidirectional. Not only water and food material, hormones, growth regulating hormones, vitamins, chemical stimuli, which are also to be transported within the plant in multidirectional. That is polarized movement. The movement of the hormones are polarized movement. that is from synthesis point to the action point, that is upward to downward or downward to upward, downward to upward. So this is the movement transport takes place in the plant. So the transport takes place by different means of transport. Means of transport. So the movement of diffusion, is passive. The movement of the is passive movement. Passive movement. Why? Because it does not require any metabolic energy to transfer the substances. So means of transport, one of the means of transport is diffusion. One of the means of transport is diffusion. The movement of substances by diffusion is a passive movement. The diffusion is a passive movement because the energy is not utilized for the diffusion of any substances. So the substances are by diffusion, the substances are moved from one end to the another end of the cell, one end to the another end of cell, or within the cell, across the cells, and within the tissues, within the cells in the tissue, within the cells in the tissue. So the diffusion takes place over shorter distance from intercellular spaces of the leaf to the atmosphere. Intercellular spaces to the atmosphere. It takes place by the diffusion. So this is the cell structure. The diffusion, the movement of the water takes place. The water moves from intercellular spaces to the atmosphere by diffusion. So there is no requirement of any metabolic energy for the movement of the substances by diffusion. So without involvement of any energy, it takes place. So in diffusion, there is no involvement of any living system. In diffusion, there is no involvement of any living system. So diffusion is obvious for the movement of water and gases. So diffusion is obvious, very obvious for the movement of water and gases in the plant. So it is more essential for the movement of gases in the plant. Gases in the plant. So the diffusion is affected by some important aspects. So the diffusion can be affected. The diffusion can be affected by, that is, the gradient, concentration, gradient. So the diffusion can be affected by concentration. The concentration gradient is not different between the two systems. So the diffusion is not takes place. The diffusion can be affected by, first one is concentration gradient or gradient concentration. Second, permeability of membrane, which is separate the two system, and pressure and temperature. Pressure and temperature also affect the diffusion. So what is diffusion? So for shorter distance, the substances are moved by the diffusion. So the diffusion is necessary for the movement of gases and water. There is no involvement of any metabolic energy, hence it is a passive movement. So the diffusion takes place. So the movement of water or gases from intercellular spaces to atmosphere. So the diffusion is affected by the three aspects, that is the gradient concentration, permeability of the membrane, pressure and temperature. So the concentration gradient is essential for the diffusion, for the movement of any substance by diffusion. So the diffusion depends on the rate of diffusion depends on the size of substances. So when the size of the substance is small, the smaller substances are diffused very fast. The diffusion depends on the size of the substances. The smaller the substances are diffused very fast. And also the solubility of the substance in lipids also affect the diffusion. The diffusion of the substance depends on the solubility of the lipids. So which is the membrane which is made of the lipids. So when the substances are soluble in the lipids, the diffusion takes place very fast. So the diffusion is affected by depends on the size of the substance. So the smaller the substance, diffuse fast, and the solubility of the substance in lipid also foster the diffusion. So the substances are soluble in lipids. Why? The cell membrane is made up with the lipids. The major constituents of the membrane is lipids. The cell membrane is made with the lipid. Hence, the substances are soluble in the lipids. The diffusion takes place very fast. If the substances are hydrophilic, the diffusion is not takes place through the membrane. So if the substances are hydrophilic, that diffusion hydrophilic, the substances are not cross the membrane. So these substances can be passed through the membrane. These substances can be diffused by facilitated diffusion. Such substances can be facilitated by membrane. Special proteins which are present in the membrane can facilitate the diffusion such hydrophilic substances. So there is no need of any concentration gradient for facilitated diffusion. Why? Because already concentration gradient is established to cross the membrane, to cross the substance to the membrane. So hence such diffusion is called facilitated diffusion. What is facilitated diffusion? You see, it is important. Facilitated diffusion is important. So diffusion is over shorter distance. The substances move across the membrane or across the cell and within the cell. So without utilizing the energy, that is a passive diffusion. So there is no need of any energy. So it takes place only on concentration gradient. The diffusion is very essential for movement of gases and water. The diffusion is affected by three important points, three important factors. That is the temperature, pressure, permeability, and concentration gradient. When the substances are small in size, the diffusion takes place very fast. When the substances are soluble in the lipid, because the membrane is made up of the lipids, hence the soluble substances are diffused very faster. Sometimes some substances are not pass across the membrane. So such substances are called hydrophilic substances. The hydrophilic substances can pass through the membrane by special proteins. Special proteins. So, the hydrophilic substances are facilitated to diffusion. Facilitated to diffuse by special proteins. By special proteins. For facilitated diffusion, there is no need of any additional concentration gradient. Why? Because already concentration gradient is established. So, these such proteins are facilitated to diffuse the substances is called facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion. In facilitated diffusion, the proteins are helped to facilitate the substance without utilizing the energy. In facilitated diffusion, the proteins, particular proteins, special proteins, the special proteins help the diffusion of substances. Diffusion of substances without utilizing any energy. So, the net result of the net causing of movement is not takes place against the concentration. In facilitated diffusion, the net cause of movement is not takes place against the low concentration to high concentration. So, as if it takes place low concentration to high concentration, the facilitated diffusion requires additional energy. So, the proteins in facilitated diffusion, the proteins help to cross the substances across the membrane without utilizing energy. There is no need of any additional concentration gradient. The facilitated diffusion is not takes place against the concentration gradient. When the transport proteins are being engaged, being saturated, all the trans proteins are saturated or being engaged. In facilitated diffusion, the cells are allowed to select the transport some substances. When facilitated diffusion takes place, facilitated diffusion is required when the trans proteins in membrane being engaged or saturated, then the facilitated diffusion allows the cell. Then the facilitated diffusion allows the cell select the substances to transport. Then only in such specific conditions the facilitated diffusion is occur in the cells. When the trans proteins are completely engaged or being saturated, then the cells are allowed to facilitate the movement of substances. So, in membrane, some of the proteins are made the large holes. So, in the membrane proteins, which are make the large holes. Some of the holes are open forever, some of the controlled, some of the large in size. So, the special proteins which make large pores in membrane is called porins. So it is important for 2 marks. What is porins? So in a membrane, the special proteins which make the large pores is called porins. Such porin or pores are present commonly present in the membrane, in the outer membrane of plastids, mitochondria and bacterial cell. So in a membrane, the special proteins are make the large holes. Some of the holes are open forever, some of the controlled, and some of the large in size, which allows the substances to pass across the membrane. So here a word porins, which make the large holes, in the membrane, outer membrane of plastids, mitochondria and bacterial cell, which allow the substances as small size of proteins, So these porins are holes, or which are pores made in the membrane by special proteins which are present in the outer membrane of the plastids, mitochondria and bacteria, which allow the substances as small size of the proteins. So this is the facilitated diffusion. So there is a small break. We will come back.
విద్యార్థుల భవిష్యత్తుకు బాటలు వేస్తూ మునుపెన్నడూ ఎరుగని అత్యుత్తమమైన ఫలితాలతో అద్భుతమైన విద్యా ప్రమాణాలతో ముందుకు దూసుకుపోతోంది శ్రద్ధ జూనియర్ కళాశాల. మహబూబ్నగర్ జిల్లా కేంద్రంలో ప్రముఖులు అనుభవజ్ఞులైన చైర్మన్ జగపతిరావు ఆధ్వర్యంలో 2011లో స్థాపించబడిన మా శ్రద్ధ జూనియర్ కళాశాల ఉన్నతమైన విద్యా ప్రమాణాలతో ఇంజనీరింగ్, మెడికల్లో చక్కని ర్యాంకుల సాధనలో విజయం వైపుగా కృషి చేస్తోంది. ఇంజనీరింగ్ అయినా, మెడికల్ అయినా శ్రద్ధ జూనియర్ కళాశాల విద్యార్థులదే పై చేయి. ఇంటర్తో పాటు ఐఐటి, నీట్, ఎంసెట్ నందు లాంగ్ టర్మ్ ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ ద్వారా కార్పొరేట్ కళాశాలలో 20 సంవత్సరాల అనుభవం కలిగిన అధ్యాపక బృందంచే ప్రత్యేక శిక్షణ తరగతులు నిర్వహిస్తూ డైలీ ప్రాక్టీస్ పేపర్స్, వీక్లీ టెస్ట్, కౌన్సిలింగ్ ద్వారా విద్యార్థుల నైపుణ్యం మెరుగుపరచడం మా ప్రత్యేకత. హ్యాండ్బాల్, ఫుట్బాల్, క్రికెట్ లో మా విద్యార్థులు జాతీయ క్రీడాకారులుగా గుర్తింపు పొందుతున్నారు. జిల్లా కేంద్రంలో సొంత భవనాలలో కళాశాలలు, విద్యార్థులకు ఉదయం, సాయంత్రం వేళలో స్టడీ అవర్స్, ఐఐటి, నీట్ లో ప్రముఖుల నిపుణులచే విద్యా బోధన, బాలికల కోసం ప్రత్యేక క్యాంపస్, ఎంపీసీ, బైపీసీ గ్రూప్లతో కో ఎడ్యుకేషన్, ఎంపీసీ, బైపీసీ, ఎంఈసీ, సిఈసీ గ్రూప్లతో గర్ల్స్ క్యాంపస్, ఎంపీసీ, బైపీసీ గ్రూప్లతో పాటు ఐఐటి, నీట్, ఎంసెట్లతో అకాడమీ.
I am Mariam Makbul. I passed out from Shraddha Junior College in 2017 from BPC. Currently, I have passed out from Tata Institute of Social Sciences. I finished my bachelor's. So one thing which is very striking about this institute is the immense and genuine amount of effort that the team of faculty puts and takes up for the success of students and their prosperity. And another thing that is very remarkable about this place is they ignited in me the spirit of competitiveness, which is very necessary in this globally evolving market world. There was one Sanskrit slok which I learnt when I was very young. Udhyame nahi siddhyanti karyani na manorataihi nahi suptasya simhasya pravishyanti mukhe mruga. This means you cannot just achieve anything just by thinking of it. You need to put in effort. That is what I have learnt from this institute. Like, even though lion is king of jungle, it has to hunt for its own prey, which is what I have learnt from Shraddha Junior College.
I am Uday Kiran. I have completed my intermediate in Shraddha Junior College in 2019, and I have joined Srinidhi Institute of Science and Technology, and I scored my JEE Mains percentile as 98.19, and due to some other problems I didn't join NIT, and I have scored my MCET rank as 4500. And here the lecturers take the special care with each and every student.
సీనియర్ మరియు జూనియర్ ఇంటర్ అడ్మిషన్ల కోసం సంప్రదించవలసిన మా చిరునామా శ్రద్ధ జూనియర్ కళాశాల, కో ఎడ్యుకేషన్ క్యాంపస్, మెట్టుగడ్డ. మీరు సంప్రదించవలసిన మా ఫోన్ నెంబర్ 9494430200. ప్రత్యేకమైన గర్ల్స్ క్యాంపస్ కోసం సంప్రదించవలసిన మా చిరునామా ఆపోజిట్ పంచవటి హోటల్, న్యూ టౌన్, మహబూబ్ నగర్. మా ఫోన్ నెంబర్ 7337294653. ఐఐటి నీట్ అకాడమీ కోసం సంప్రదించవలసిన మా చిరునామా శ్రద్ధ జూనియర్ కళాశాల, మెట్టుగడ్డ. మా ఫోన్ నెంబర్ 9491629962.
Welcome to continue the water surface of the transprotein membranes. The substances are, this is the substance which get attached to the outer surface of the transproteins. So when the transproteins are rotate within the membrane, and transproteins are rotate within the membrane, the substances are released into inside, from outside to inside. Thus the substances are transport from outside to inside by the transmembrane proteins. So the water channels are formed. The water channels are formed by the 8 aqua proteins. The water channels. So the water channels which are formed by the 8 aqua proteins. Now we shall discuss the types of passive transport. The types of passive transport. As if the two substances are passed across the membrane. Two substances are passed across the membrane. Depending on the movement of the substances across the membrane, on same direction, on opposite direction, or independently. So it is of 3 types of passive transport. That is symport. As if it is the membrane, both the substances are moved together in one direction, A substance and B substance. Substance A and B pass across the membrane in same direction, that is known as symport. If the substances are passed through the membrane in opposite direction, this is the A, this is the B. The two substances are passed through the membrane in opposite direction, across the membrane in opposite direction, that is called antiport. So a substance pass across the membrane independently without relation with other substances, that is called uniport. This is the uniport. So the passive transport types. So when the substances are move or pass across the membrane together, if both the substances are passed across the membrane in one direction, that is called symport. So the substances are passed across the membrane in opposite direction, that is called antiport. Then if a single substance, independent substance, pass across the membrane without relation with other substances, that is called uniport. So the passive transport takes place in 3 types without consuming the energy. Passive transport means without consuming any metabolic energy, the substances are passed across the membrane, that is called passive transport. Now we shall discuss active transport. So by utilizing the metabolic energy, the substances are passed across the membrane. The transport of the substances takes place by utilizing any metabolic energy. By utilizing the metabolic energy, the substances are moved. That is called active transport. What is active transport? So the movement of the substances takes place by utilizing the metabolic energy, that is ATP. Then it is called active transport. So here the active transport takes place against the concentration gradient. The active transport takes place against the concentration gradient. Concentration means that low concentration to high concentration. Low concentration to high concentration. Passive transport, what is the difference between passive transport and active transport? Passive means without utilizing any metabolic energy, the movement of substance takes place across the membrane, within the cells, between the cells. That is the passive transport. Active transport means the movement of the substance across the membrane, within the cell, against the concentration by utilizing the metabolic energy. That is the active. So by utilizing the metabolic energy, the movement of substances takes place. That is active transport. Without utilizing the energy, the movement of substances takes place. That is passive energy. So the membrane proteins are involved for transport the substances passively, actively. The membrane proteins play a major role, an important role to the transport of the substance actively and passively. So in active transport, the substances are move across the membrane against the concentration. When active transport is like facilitated transport, when active transport takes place, when the transport proteins are being saturated or fully engaged, then the cells are allowed to transport the substances by utilizing energy by active. So when the active transport, when it is active transport, when the trans proteins in the membrane, proteins completely engaged, then the active transport takes place by special proteins by utilizing the ATP energy. So the active transport also inhibited by the active transports also inhibited by some inhibitors by binding the proteins with side chains. The active transport and facilitated transport both are inhibited by some substances, inhibitors, because they bind with the side chains of the proteins. Now, then the next subtopic in this, the plant water relation. Now, so before that we discussed that means of transport, that is the diffusion, which takes place according to the concentration gradient without utilizing any energy. So in this we discussed that facilitated diffusion. So when the substances are not passed across the membrane, some special proteins are facilitated to diffuse. These proteins allow the substances pass across the membrane, and there is no need of any concentration gradient. Why? Because already concentration gradient is established. So thus proteins which help the movement of substances across the membrane, that is called a special proteins which help the movement of substances across the membrane, that is facilitated for diffusion. And another same time we discussed that passive movement, passive transport, active transport. Passive transport, without utilizing the metabolic energy, the substances are passed across the membrane and translocate, that is the passive movement. Active transport means by utilizing metabolic energy, ATP, the substances are passed across the membrane against the concentration gradient, that is the active transport. Now we shall discuss plant-water relation. So, water is an important for all biological activities of the plants or living organism. Water is an essential medium for all metabolic activities, physiological activities. So, it acts as a medium for all metabolic activities. So, the substances are dissolved in the water in the cells. The substances are dissolved in the water. So the plant cell consists of, the plant protoplasm contains 90% of water. 90%. In the plant protoplasm contains 90% of water, in which some of the substances are in dissolved condition, some of the substances are in suspended condition. So thus the water is essential for all metabolic activities of the plant or physiological activity of the plant. It acts as a medium for dissolve these substances in the cell. So the protoplasm, which contains 90% of water, 90% of water. So some of the substances are in dissolved state and some are suspended in the protoplasm. So the watermelon, which contains 90% of water, which contains 90%. The herbaceous plants which fresh dry weight is 10 to 15%. 10 to 15%. In herbaceous plants, the fresh dry weight is only 10 to 15%. Remaining is water. So the distribution of water is vary in different parts of the plant. The distribution of the water is vary in different parts of the plant. In woody plants, there relatively less water is present. Relatively less water is present. In woody plants, relatively less water is present. Whereas in the seeds which are looks like dry, but it contains a little amount of water, otherwise it is not alive and not respire. Thus the distribution of water is vary. In the plant parts. So the plants are absorb a lot of water and lose it into the air by evaporation, that is known as transpiration. The plants absorb lot of water and they lose water into the air by evaporation. The phenomenon is called transpiration. So it is a common. The plants which absorb lot of water, and the absorbed water is again released into the water, lost into the air by evaporation. The phenomenon is transpiration. The loss of water in the form of vapor through the stomata, aerial parts of the plant, that is known as transpiration. Another definition, transpiration. Loss of water in the form of water vapors through the aerial parts into the atmosphere, that is the transpiration. So the matured corn plant observe the 3 liters of water per day. A matured corn plant observe 3 liters of water per day, whereas the mustard plant which observe the water equal to their weight in every 5 hours. In every 5 hours, the mustard plant observe the water equal to their weight. Thus, the plants are absorb lot of water. Then the water becomes an essential and limiting factor for growth and productivity of the agriculture and natural plant. So, the plants absorb lot of water and loss into the air as a vapors. The phenomenon is called transpiration. For example, a corn plant, maize plant, which absorb the water 5 liters per day, whereas mustard plant which absorb the water equal to their weight of every 5 hours. So thus the water becomes an essential for the productivity and growth. So the water becomes a limiting factor for both agriculture and environmental plants. So now we shall discuss about the water potential. Water water potential. To explain the water potential, we have to understand some technical terms. So, to explain the plant water relation, we have to understand some technical terms, that is water potential, pressure potential and solution potential. Water potential is a concept of fundamental movement of water. Water potential is a concept of fundamental movement of water. So, the greater system of water consists of greater kinetic energy. The greater system of water consists of greater kinetic energy. The greater kinetic energy of the water is called water potential. The free energy of water, the chemical energy of water is also called water potential. The chemical or free energy of water is called water potential. So always the greater water system consists of greater kinetic energy or greater potential. The greatest water system has greater kinetic energy or potential. Thus, the pure water consists of highest water potential. So, thus the pure water has high water potential. So, water potential means concept of fundamental movement of the water, which indicates the concept of fundamental movement of water. The greatest system of water consists of greatest kinetic energy. The greater kinetic energy is nothing but water potential. So, a chemical potential of water is called water potential. So, always the pure water has high water potential. The pure water has high water potential. When the two water containing systems are contacted, the net movement of water results. The net movement of water results from high concentration to high water potential to high water potential to low water potential. The movement of water takes place. Low water potential. Always when two water containing systems are connected with the net movement of water takes place from high water potential region to low water potential region. Thus, always the water moves from high water potential region to low water potential region. So, similarly, in plants also the water moves from high water potential region to low water potential. The water potential is denoted as psi in Greek. The water potential is denoted as psi, and measures in pascals. So, always the pure water has high water potential. So, it is always positive. Pure water. So, at atmospheric, without any atmospheric pressure, the pure water potential is always positive. Then, in a solution a solute is added to the water potential is gradually decreased. That is a solution potential. When solute is added to the water, gradually water potential is decreased. Means that that becomes fewer. The free water molecules becomes less. The free water molecules are decreased. When the free water molecules are decreased, means the water potential is decreased. Solution potential means, and solute is added to the water potential gradually decreases. It fewer the free water molecules. So what is the magnitude? Lower the water potential is called solution potential. So the solute which lowers the water potential, that is called solution potential. Solution potential always negative. Solution potential is always negative, which can be denoted as psi p. Water potential denoted as psi w. The solution potential is denoted as psi s. Solution potential is denoted as psi s. So in a water system, the water potential is always equal to the solution potential. In a particular water system, the water potential is equal to solution potential. That is, psi w is equal to psi s. Psi w is equal to psi s. So here next term is pressure potential. We discussed that water potential. So the chemical energy of the water, pure water, is a water potential which can be denoted as psi w. Then solution potential which is denoted as psi s. Then it is always positive, it is always negative. Next, pressure potential which is denoted as psi p. So at normal atmosphere and increasing the pressure, the water potential is increased both in pure water and solution water. At normal atmospheric pressure, when atmospheric pressure is increased on pure water or solution, its water potential is increased. So a pressure is built up in the cell. A pressure is built up in the plant cell by movement of water. A pressure which is build up the pressure. A pressure is built up within the cell by movement of water that exerted on the cell wall. The magnitude of the increase of pressure on cell wall is called pressure potential. A pressure is built up in the cell by movement of water. The water which is exerted the pressure on cell wall, the magnitude of the increase of the pressure in the cell by movement of water, that is called pressure potential, which is denoted by psi p. So psi p always positive, whereas in plant xylem vessel columns, the pressure potential is always negative. Because of that, the water movement takes place up in the plants. So in a system, always the water potential is equal to the solute potential and pressure potential. At constant temperature and atmosphere, the water potential is always equal to the solution pressure potential and pressure potential. This is the today's topic. So once again I will explain you? Is there any? Today we discussed that the transport in plants. So which is means of transport is diffusion. So tomorrow we'll come back on the same time to explain the same subject. Okay.
విద్యార్థుల భవిష్యత్తుకు బాటలు వేస్తూ మునుపెన్నడూ ఎరుగని అత్యుత్తమమైన ఫలితాలతో అద్భుతమైన విద్యా ప్రమాణాలతో ముందుకు దూసుకుపోతోంది శ్రద్ధ జూనియర్ కళాశాల. మహబూబ్నగర్ జిల్లా కేంద్రంలో ప్రముఖులు అనుభవజ్ఞులైన చైర్మన్ జగపతిరావు ఆధ్వర్యంలో 2011లో స్థాపించబడిన మాస్